So if you were to bring the black share of wealth at least to the black share of the population, it would require an additional at least $10 trillion.
But if we were paid those unskilled wages at a 6% interest rate, we would have $6.2 quadrillion that we would be owed today.
Reparations is the key. The story have black folks come and talk about what kind of hell they live and have people have to listen. Reparations will set us free.
All right, this is in the news. Global supply chain crisis flares up again where it all began. Ports are already snarled with the 22 trillion trade in global goods facing months of severe disruption. China's stringent rules to curb COVID-19 are about to unleash another wave of summer chaos on supply chains between Asia, the US, and Europe. Beijing's zero-tolerance approach amid an escalating virus outbreak brings the pandemic full circle. More than 2 years after its emergence in Wuhan upended the global economy, shipping congestion at Chinese ports combined with Russia's war in Ukraine risk a 1-2 punch that threatens to derail the recovery already buffered by inflation pressures and headwinds to growth. Even if the virus is reined in, the disruptions will ripple globally and extend through the year as bunched up cargo vessels start sailing again. We expect a bigger mess than last year, said Jacques Vandermeeren, the chief executive officer of the Port of Antwerp, Europe's second busiest for container volume. In an interview, it will have a negative impact and a big negative impact for the whole of 2022. China accounts for about 12% of global trade, and cocoa restrictions have idled factories and warehouses, slowed truck deliveries, and exacerbated container log jams. US and European ports are already swamped, leaving them vulnerable to additional shocks. When product exports activities resume and a large volume of vessels make their way to the US West Coast ports, we expect waiting times to increase significantly, said Julie Geerdeman, CEO of supply chain risk analytics firm Everstream Analytics.
So no more Gucci Gucci for a while. Gotta wait on our knockoffs.
Yeah, I guess so.
Isn't China also having some major lockdown where people are not even allowed to go out their house for anything?
Yeah, I think there's certain provinces that are currently involved in that. I don't know which ones at my disposal right now, but yeah, I think there's one or two provinces, but yeah, I heard something about like that on a news report yesterday.
Crazy. All right. Washington state code to nix word marijuana over concerns it's racist. In Washington state, where recreational pot is legal, marijuana is out and cannabis is in. Starting in June, the word marijuana will be stricken throughout the revised code of Washington and replaced with cannabis. It's the result of House Bill 1210, finding the use of the term marijuana in the United States has discriminatory origins. HB 1210 was passed by the legislature this session and signed into law by Governor Jay Inslee on March 11th. State Rep Melanie Morgan de Tuquila The prime sponsor of the legislation explained its importance during testimony before the House Commerce and Gaming Committee in January. Quote, this House Bill 1210 to change terminology from using the word marijuana to the scientific name cannabis is extremely important. Even though it seems simple because it's just one word, end quote, she said during the virtual meeting. Quote, but the reality is we are healing the wrongs that were committed against Black and brown people around cannabis as it was used as racist terminology to lock Black and brown people out. So what are they doing in addition to censoring the word marijuana? Are they trying to erase Mary Jane now?
Hey, I guess they're gonna do what they need to do, what they feel like they need to do.
I mean, but it's pretty meaningless unless it comes with some kind of policy or reform to get the people out of jail that are serving time over, marijuana, which is now legal as it's cannabis.
Right. Google Docs criticized for woke, inclusive language suggestions. Critics have described the company's policy as speech policy, and creepy housewife and even a computer motherboard have been flagged as not being inclusive by the new system. Google has been criticized for an inclusive language feature that will recommend word substitutions for people writing in Google Docs. The tool will offer guidance to people writing in a way that may not be inclusive to all readers in a similar manner to spelling and grammar check systems. Although the suggestions are just suggestions, they aren't forced on writers and the tool may be turned off. Critics have described as speech policing and profoundly clumsy, creepy, and wrong. The new feature is officially called assistive writing and will be on by default or enterprise users, business customers who might want to nudge particular writing styles among their staff. The language the system favors reflects decades of campaigning for gender-neutral terms, crude instead of manned, and against phrases that reflect racial prejudice, deny list instead of blacklist, as well as more modern concerns about the impact of our vocabulary and how we identify people. But despite enormous developments in how computers understand natural language, the technology is still in its infancy. Among the words that the system has flagged in tests are mankind, housewife, landlord, and even a computer motherboard, which may not cause offense.
Well, there's a lot of suppression of words and language going on these days. A lot of censorship, it seems, is happening.
Yep.
Vitter ISD students suspended after video showing teens using racial slurs. This is an article from April 22nd, 2022. 12 News is choosing not to release the video because of its graphic nature. Vitter, Texas, a video circulating on social media, has landed some Vitter Independent Schools District high school students in hot water. The video shows several teens using a racial slur several times inside the high school campus hallways. It's generated a lot of reactions from people throughout the community. Vitter ISD issued a statement to 12 News. It did happen. We did not tolerate this. The students will be disciplined. The students have been suspended and a disciplinary hearing is pending, Sally Andrews, a spokesperson with the district, said.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the link from the video in the chat because we're probably not going to play it for all various reasons because this young lady curses and all this other stuff. We have to do a lot of editing, so we'll put the link in the replay.
Yeah, so look for that later, fam.
In the description, absolutely. Black student slaps white student after calling him the N-word at a Georgia high school. In a viral video that has spread on social media, a white female student is recorded calling a black male student the N-word at a Henry County, Georgia high school. The boy then proceeds to slap the girl. Racism in any shape or form isn't okay, Commisha Davis told local news, parent to a 15-year-old daughter that attends Locust Grove High School where the incident occurred. For you to hear that your child is not safe at a place you send her to every day, that's devastating, Davis said.
So that's in Georgia. The first incident that we just went over was in Texas. So this is becoming quite a widespread phenomenon among our youth, unfortunately. No Black and Asian people do not resent Western achievements. We made them possible. University of Pennsylvania law professor Amy Wax's comments were irresponsible, problematic, and all its core actually very inaccurate. At its core, very inaccurate. University of Pennsylvania law professor Amy Wax made headlines and sparked outrage recently for claiming that Black and Asian people resent Western people's outsized achievements on Tucker Carlson's Fox Nation show. Wax, who has a history of racist remarks, told Carlson she thinks there is just a tremendous amount of resentment and shame of non-Western peoples against Western peoples for Western people's outsized achievements and contributions. Citing instances where people of color called out racism as she did is not proof that we resent Western achievements, but that there are systematic inequalities in the U.S. Black and Asian people do not resent Western achievements. Why would we resent something that we have contributed significantly to? And that was the author, Quan Lin F. Liu, speaking there.
How is that different from vandalism? It just seems like people coming in and wrecking everything that was valuable in an institution that they never built themselves.
It's very reckless and destructive. It's very vindictive. It's very angry.
Yeah. Where does that anger come from, do you think?
I think there is just a tremendous amount of resentment and shame of non-Western peoples against Western peoples for Western peoples' outsized achievements and contributions. I mean, it's really unbearable. I was actually, leaving aside American blacks, who I think do feel that resentment and shame and envy. I mean, it's this unholy brew of sentiments. I was talking to Glenn Lowry about this bizarre fact that Asian and South Asian, Indian doctors at Penn Med, which I know people there and I know what's going on there, that they're on the ramparts for the anti-racism initiative for Dump on America. America is an evil racist place. These are immigrants.
The number one highest income group in America is
hate America.
Right.
A goodly number of them, not all.
But you're from a group, I mean, first of all, I hate even thinking in terms of groups anyway, because what matters is the individual, obviously. But as long as we are, if you're a member of the highest income, highest achievement group in America, and you're looking down another group, native-born whites, for example, and saying you're the problem, like, how does that work exactly?
Well, that is, to me, utterly bizarre and fascinating. And
why does anybody put up with that?
Right. I'm not saying all Indian immigrants are this way. I'm just saying you look at the roster of, who's leading the programs, the endless number of programs where they talk about diversity and racism and all the racism that people have to encounter in medicine and how racist medicine is and all this. And you see these brown faces or you see these Asian faces and you think, I mean, literally you think, so you're coming from your country, which you're implying is equal or better than our country.
Literally.
And you're telling us how awful we are. Well, what's the explanation for that?
China's an ethno-state, by the way, which no one ever says. It's about the Han Chinese, and if you're not, that's the problem with the Uyghurs. That's their religion. They're not Han Chinese. Whatever. I'm not even judging. I'm just saying people from there have no right to judge the United States.
But they very much feel that they do. And so
All right.
No thoughts on that?
Outside of Western, meaning maybe white ideology, that's about it.
And outside of the white ideology, I mean, aren't we Westerners also? I mean, always seem to be, singling black people out. They're talking about Westerners, they're talking about Americans, but black people are always a subgroup, it seems.
Yeah. Elon Musk bought Twitter. Here's what he says he'll do next. Elon Musk will soon hold the keys to Twitter. The company announced on Monday that it has accepted the Tesla CEO's $44 billion offer to take the company private. That means the world's richest person who has a penchant for theatrics and erratic behavior is about to have the power to reshape discourse on a social network used by more than 200 million people every day. How might Musk wield that power? Here are some proposals for Twitter that he's floated. Loosen up content rules in the name of free speech. Create an edit button so users can change their tweets. Open up Twitter's algorithm to the public. Launch a war on bot armies. Scrap advertisements. And full disclosure, this article did mention something about reinstating Donald Trump, but I just didn't, put this in this article because I didn't think it was that relevant. But there's a source at the npr.org if anybody wants to further research this article. But yeah, those are some of the talking points from the article.
Okay, now that it looks like this Elon Musk acquisition of Twitter is happening, Section 230 was trending again on Twitter. So let's revisit that statute. What is Section 230? Section 230 is a provision of federal law that protects internet web hosts and users from legal liability for online information provided by third parties. In addition, the law protects web hosts from liability for voluntarily and in good faith editing or restricting access to objectionable material, even if the material is constitutionally protected. Section 230 was enacted as part of the Communications Decency Act of 1996, which amended the Communications Act of 1934, U.S. Congress. The provision was intended to promote the development of the internet and of interactive computer services to expand information and educational resources available to the public. In recent years, the spread of misinformation and disinformation through internet services and denials of access to some individuals and material have raised questions about the scope of Section 230 provisions. Key takeaways. Section 230 protects providers and users of internet services from liability and information provided online by third parties. Web hosts can edit and restrict access to objectionable third-party material, even if the material otherwise would be constitutionally protected. Section 230 does not eliminate liability for material prohibited by laws on obscenity, sexual exploitation of children, prostitution, or sex trafficking, or by laws protecting intellectual property and communications privacy. The role of online services is denying access to some content and users, and in spreading misinformation and disinformation has raised political issues about the scope of Section 230 immunity. So, now that we have switched hands here, we'll see if, the new owner is going to be all about allowing First Amendment freedoms on the platform, or if they'll be censoring. And the reason Trump came up, because, that was a big deal when Twitter removed his account permanently. And let's see, Jen Psaki, actually, press secretary, had a statement to make about this whole issue. Let's take a listen.
That this new agreement might have President Trump back on the platform?
Well, I'm not going to comment on a specific transaction. What I can tell you as a general matter, no matter who owns or runs Twitter, the president has long been concerned about the power of large social media platforms, the power they have over our everyday lives, has long argued that tech platforms must be held accountable for the harms they cause. He's been a strong supporter of fundamental reforms to achieve that goal, including reforms to Section 230, enacting antitrust reforms, requiring more transparency, and more. And he's encouraged that there's bipartisan interest in Congress. In terms of what hypothetical policies might happen, I'm just not going to speak to that at this point in time.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, when you talk about social media, you know, we've been having a back and forth conversation about this. You know, you're talking about platforms where obviously it's out in the public, and so if you're talking about a company now becoming private, then where does the understanding of freedom of speech come into play, you know, at that particular point? And what does that mean in terms of when you're trying to advocate for a certain perspective, or you might be debating about something, a topic, even when you talk about explicit language, right? Or you're talking about offensive language, using the N-word, racial, even quote unquote homophobic, you know, ideologies being presented in these particular platforms and then being censored upon that. I mean, I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if this Section 230 is constitutional or not, but it's just interesting because, you know, I mean, for me, I mean, I don't tweet and I'm not a Twitterer, or whatever you want to call it. But I've heard people who've said some things and they've gotten banned or at least put in Twitter jail for a while, and Facebook and some of these other social media platforms. So it's really interesting how government and also these, you know, private corporations are trying to have a balance. But you know, I mean, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, it does get wild in these tweet streets. You're right about that. But so we'll see if President Trump, or not President Trump, but you know, that orange guy, 45, whatever we want to call him, makes it back to the Twitter platform.
A fraudulent cocoa testing company to refund victims, LA City Attorney. Some customers who got a PCR test from same day outside the time frame are eligible, and customers who didn't get results within the advertised turnaround time are also eligible for a repayment. Same Day Technologies, which operates under Same Day Health, has a total of 55 testing sites throughout the country, with 16 locations in Los Angeles County, including 5 in the city. In Los Angeles County, there are 16 locations with storefronts in Long Beach, Redondo Beach, Pasadena, Sherman Oaks, Manhattan Beach, Studio City, West Hollywood, downtown Los Angeles, Los Feliz, Hollywood, Culver City, Brentwood, Westchester, Santa Monica, and Venice. The company also does house calls in the county. Fuhrer and Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon filed the complaint, alleging that Same Day Health and its CEO, Felix Hutenbeck, falsely advertised that the test results could be provided to customers within 24 hours, knowing that it couldn't make that guarantee. The city also alleged that they falsified and forged COVID-19 test results to at least 500 customers when it couldn't provide real results within 24 hours. According to the complaint, the company would manipulate old PDF lab reports from previous tests to forge the test results. Fuhrer urged those seeking COVID-19 tests to report any additional suspicious testing companies or services to the city.
Wow, so they just telling people anything.
I guess they doing whatever they doing. I mean, I don't know. Just reporting the news. Just reporting the news.
All right, what else is in the news? Vice President Harris tests positive for COVID-19, hasn't had close contact with Biden. VP will return to White House when she tests negatives, her office says. Vice President Kamala Harris tested positive Tuesday for COVID-19 on rapid and PCR tests, and her press secretary Kirsten Allen in a statement, or said her press secretary Kirsten Allen in a statement. Harris has exhibited no symptoms, will isolate and continue to work from the vice president's residence. She has not been in close contact to the president or first lady due to their respective recent travel schedules, Allen added. Harris will return to the White House once she tests negative for the virus, Allen said. So I guess get well soon, and that's in the news.